Episode 337. What are we measuring? This is The Change Underground. I'm your host, John. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. From Politico.eu comes an opinion piece from Joe Swinson, a former LDP leader in the UK. The piece is entitled Mainstream Economics is Lost and the Price is Political Chaos. Quote, "It's time to move beyond GDP as a proxy for progress and to end our obsession with a metric that has flaws which have been obvious since well before 1968, when presidential candidate John F. Kennedy made the memorable critique, 'It measures everything in short except that which makes life worthwhile.' The arguments are well rehearsed and many. GDP ignores much of what matters most. Disasters make GDP go up. It tells us nothing about who gets what. For living things, growing is helpful and desirable only up to the point of maturity. And as a society, we need to support growth of other things, our health and well-being, the abundance of nature in our parks and green spaces, the flourishing skills and self-esteem of our young people, as well as our collective curiosity, creativity, care and cooperation. We are by nature social animals, and cooperation is humanity's defining strength." End quote. Now, I believe we've discussed GDP before, the example being that the idea of spraying so much pesticide that honeybees are wiped out and apple orchards therefore need to be hand-pollinated is reflected as an increase in GDP because there's more work for humans, more sales for pesticides, and more accountants keeping track of all of this. Clearly something is wrong with this, and as mentioned in the quote, for living things, growing is helpful and desirable only up to the point of maturity. The only other system I can think of that revels in unlimited continuous growth is cancer. And that's why GDP is a problem, or growth as measured by GDP. However, the financial markets are tied to growth. Getting it happening faster or slowing it down to come out of recession or slow down inflation, respectively. Last year, the state government announced the new irrigation systems here in Tassie. The problematic times of the year are January and February. We have a Mediterranean-style climate, and those 2 months of high summer are usually dry. The irrigation systems are designed to cover the gap in any other periods of less than average rainfall. The thing is, these systems cost money to install on the farm and to set up as water collection systems initially. The problem of misapplied water, as in wet all summer, when soil microbiota have evolved to thrive in dry summers, and the debt incurred to build the systems means a reliance on artificial fertilisers, which again disrupt that soil biota. I suspect there'll be an increased need for fungicides too as the out-of-whack soil races to rebalance themselves. The thinking behind the scheme goes along these lines. Climate change will disrupt our rainfall patterns, so we'll create these systems to balance the fluctuations, increase productivity and grow Tasmania's GDP. Almost every economic decision made by governments almost everywhere, well, maybe not North Korea, but who's to know, the decisions are to grow GDP. A one-off measurement that can trigger currency collapse, interest rate jumps or terror in the political ranks with an election just around the corner when the number moves the wrong way. Wrong there is in inverted commas, obviously. Are there alternative measurements that might actually take into account the growth in knowledge and understanding of ecological systems? Well, sort of. There's a list of 8 alternatives from the website In the Black. On the page GDP Alternatives, 8 Ways of Measuring Economic Health, updated for 2023. There's a link in the show note, as always, if you'd like to dig into them all yourself. And I should add that In the Black website is run by CPA Australia, one of our top bean-counting professional associations. There's the Growth Happiness Index from Bhutan, which is a thing, and the UN's Human Development Index. But the one that caught my eye is Thriving Places Index. They have a website, Centre for thrivingplaces.org, and the gist of their index is that they are including mental and physical health, education and learning, work and local economy, and green infrastructure to measure economic health. Now, this is just a summary, but you can see what they're about. The positives, according to In the Black, are, and I quote, TPI supports a move away from defining success purely in terms of consumption. By looking at factors such as land use, recycling and income disparity, it can also help planners better understand how to support communities, end quote. All quite laudable and something I think we can work with. But here comes the bean counters. The cons, read TPI, are, and I quote, TPI may be too radical a departure from the current GDP paradigm to be widely accepted by financial professionals, end quote. And that's been the problem with climate change, electrification of the economy, moving to the metric system here way back in 1972-ish. Yet here we are with Celsius, metres and litres. It's quite amazing. Now, despite the perceived reputation financial markets have for wildly speculating with other people's money, there's a deep inertia against radical change built into the system. Speculation is great while it's making money, but when the ship hits the sand, individuals go to jail and other enterprises go to the wall or are bailed out by those filthy socialists, the central bankers. Open brackets, make sure to point out that this line was me being ironic, close brackets. Something like the TPI is needed before we all consume ourselves, our society and our soils into oblivion. Any thoughts gratefully accepted? And a big thanks to Owen Clark for your kind message in the Facebook group. It was very much appreciated. There's a link to the group if you'd like to come and join the fun over there. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. Thank you all for listening. I'll be back next week.